your name and address for the record?
I certainly will. Good evening. My name is Bob Cambrick, C-A-M-B-R-I-C. My address is 1614 Hollywood Boulevard. However, I grew up in Winter Park. I was born in Winter Park, and I happened to be at church on Sunday in Winter Park, and my family and friends told me about this. And let me give you an introduction to me. Like I said, I grew up in Winter Park. I attended Welborn Daycare Center, went to Webster, went through integration, then went to Clardy, then went to Lakemont, went to Winter Park Junior High School, and eventually went to Florida State. I have a master's in urban regional planning, 25 years of experience. I looked at your proposal, and I have comments on behalf of the residents about that proposal from the planning point of view, and right now from the land use part of it, not the zoning, first still the land use. The most important thing to try to look at here is you have a comprehensive plan that Winter Park has looked at, put together, and really, I've worked for 25 years. I'll give you my background. I've worked for the Appalachian Regional Planning Council. I was assistant director there. I worked for the Department of Community Affairs for 5 years, and also secretary as a government coordination coordinator. Worked for the South Florida Regional Planning Council, director of policy and planning, and also worked in the private sector. Winter Park is one of the best planned communities of the 472 cities in the state of Florida. You have a plan that has gotten you there. And the plan is supposed to guide you in a holistic way about what your village is supposed to do. You have policies regarding the Hannibal Square neighborhood that are intended to protect this neighborhood. However, to do this change, you have to abandon most of those policies and say speculation is more important than community harmony. Speculation, our product, the appropriate product, is more important than the appropriate residents who live in the community and have in that community. And not only the community, the residents who have lived in the community. I'm looking at the families that I know, the Violence families, the Mathises, you know, everyone that's here. But I'm also looking at faces that have moved there, and they have expectations about what their future is going to be and what they are going to get from having purchased or decided to reside in the area. And so the things that, there's a letter that has been submitted by both Beverly Mathis, you have a copy of, as well as from Mary Dames, that goes over the specific ways that you have to violate the components of your plan to make this happen. Most importantly, you say preserve the single family character. You came back in 2009, you actually had your comp plan, you will not convert single family. But you realize as a community, you can't find the hands of a future commission. But if you make this change, it is a de facto handcuff with what you're saying, and what Mr. Bellows so adequately demonstrated. His entire presentation was based on, I've assembled this land, and if it worked for what had happened on Denning Drive, this doesn't work. I'm going to encroach into the neighborhood to step down from 4 stories. I'll go down to 3. The question is, at what point does that level of encroachment cease? Because once you do that, about 3 minutes ago? What was that? Once you do that, immediately across. Okay, very quickly.
Well, if you're speaking on behalf of some other.
Yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of other people. I'll wrap up very quickly. Okay. If you do that immediately to the south side on Canton Avenue, you now have residents who are going to be looking at a 3-story vista every day. Their scenic view is gone. Your next proposal is going to be, well, it's already right here across the street. Why don't you just change that one? Then, once you get to the corner, where and I keep saying Thule, but she's up, Ms. Jennings lives, well, at 751. Once you get to that corner, you now start marching east toward Park Avenue. Step by step, you start marching north and south, up and down Capon. Mr. Bellows, he's talking about the churches on Swope. That is not connected to that property, but he's making it part of it. That's part of the conversation. We're moving and we're consolidating and we're changing the character of this community that you said you wanted to keep a certain way. Now, if the comp plan isn't working for the community, don't make piecemeal changes to it to make a particular project work. And that's what you're doing. You're changing the standards and say, well, I have to disagree with you regarding this change regarding the parking garages only for this parcel. I don't think you actually said you do spot zoning, but what you're saying is where there's a garage, this policy can apply. I didn't see any staff analysis of where the parking garages throughout the city of Winter Park. And who else's neighborhoods are now going to be in jeopardy because they happen to have a parking garage in their garage? The other part about this is you're making a change. You have a policy that talks about you will limit consolidation. Well, in this instance, it would violate your consolidation policy that you came up with just a couple of years ago to make this work. Well, you create this exception here. I remember when I was in up in Tallahassee. And one of the things I remember was the city of Winter Park went through a series of moratoriums. And why did you do that? Because you didn't like the fact that all the great bungalows are being torn down and mansions were being built. And you put a hold on it and said, let's come back and figure out how we work together. So if the plan isn't working in the Hannibal Square neighborhood, I think it is, the residents think it is, there are opportunities for some things to be adjusted. But if this isn't giving the private sector their opportunity for speculation, and that's the issue. Do you have a comp plan that's designed by the community, that forces community vision, or are you going to be guided by speculative activities and you make piecemeal changes every time someone says, I can't make a profit? So if the plan's not working, get together with the residents. Get together with the development community. Get together with the brokers. Get together with the land trust. You are a partner with the land trust. You have made an investment in that land trust. You're one of the only, and there's only a few land trusts in the state of Florida that are actively working well. This is a model. When Mary Daniels was the president of the land trust, and I was in Tallahassee, I was constantly calling Mary and saying, someone's calling you because they don't know how to do this. But what you're doing is you're creating a policy conflict for the land trust. You keep saying, okay, we'll change and add development a $400,000 price point. That's going to keep driving land costs up. And then what winds up happening? Now you're saying the land trust go fix it? Your policy caused the problem. You make the change. So, in summarize, don't violate your comp plan for this 8 parcels of land. It doesn't work for the comp plan. If the development community isn't able to work in the Hannibal Square area or any other part of Winter Park, then go back and revision the comp plan and see what changes need to be made. Not piecemeal, holistic things that work both the community, the private sector, visitors, and everyone else. And so there's a couple other things that were incorrect that I wanted to make sure I corrected. There's a comment that R2, you're allowed to build single family R2, you cannot. Single family under comp plan says single family, single family. You have to go to low density to get to R2. Okay. All right. The other thing, there was one other thing very quickly, which is simply the land use part of it is just simply this, once again, and once you look at the letter, like I said, you have to go through it. There are so many areas in your comp plan that you have to either change or ignore to approve this. So the recommendation that I'm stating on behalf of my family and friends here is that you deny this land use change at this time. And if there's a future request, one of the things you may want to look at, there are other things that for the future is, if you want to start beginning to talk about how to do this in concert with the community. Mr. Bello said he wasn't aware of objections. Well, the community wasn't really aware of his development plan. And so there's always opportunity for communication. So let's all talk together about how to go forward in the future. But the thing we need to talk about how to go forward in the future is to first say no to this. If you begin to consider the question of rezoning and consolidation, I've made comments about that, but that's also all 3 issues, requests that you oppose, deny those at this time. Right.
I'm John Schofield. I live at 358 Victoria Avenue. And start the clock, yeah.
You got them all. No, these are mine. I swear these are mine.
First of all, I don't know this gentleman that just spoke, but he's highly educated. He is trained in this discipline. He seems to have the love of some of the neighborhood, and he was very articulate, so I think I'd give him a whole lot of weight. And he's not probably going to make more or less money depending on what happens. So, I'd like to I wrote everything up, but I'd like to express my opposition to the increased density requested by the applicant. I come from the following perspective. I'm a lifelong resident of Winter Park, business owner with an office across the street from here, owner of 12 properties in the west side, 2 of which are across the street from the proposed development. I've got a house here and out there. The most successful approach with these blocks of land appears to be to purchase them, tear down the homes, then request a variance to increase density, implying that granting this increase in density is the only financially viable solution. I wish that staff, the Planning and Zoning Board, and the City Commission would be less inclined to grant changes to a historically agreed upon vision of minimal density increases, as well as the incursion into the Winter Park's historic neighborhood of modest homes. As for the request at hand, my personal preference would be to leave this R1A. However, I do recognize that such a decision would cause a loss of value in the lots and would trigger the following approach. One would allow the land to lay fallow until such time that a different commission or different planning and zoning board would be more likely to approve the requested increases in density. This being said, I fully agree with staff's opinion to not allow increased density on Capon, which is exclusively residential, short of a few churches, and otherwise in close to Morse Boulevard, which is commercial. I'd prefer to see the balanced area on West Canton between Capon and Denning to be allowed no more than R2. As I said, I don't think it's realistic to ask for R1A because this may be zoned R4, but it's green space now. I don't know if you guys all recognize that. I guess it's park land for this building here. But you're going from big commercial here, dropping down to green space, and then dropping up again doesn't seem appropriate to me. I want to thank you for your consideration and presume that any decision you made is based on the greater good of the community. Increasing density provides a great benefit to a very small number of people and causes a small negative effect to a very large number of people. And a couple of other comments. There was a comment that they don't do the design ahead of time. But in the world of computers and 3D images, probably $5,000 could have been spent to give you guys some really cool stuff to look at, to give some vision. And when you're talking about, what, $2, $5, $10 million worth of projects, maybe you should drop 5 or 10 grand into it to help you guys out and see what the vision is. And then it seems, is that 5 seconds or no? Okay, thank you for your time, appreciate it.
My name's Tony Robinson. I live at 515 Marquis Ridley, Altamont Springs, even though I do not live in Norfolk. My wife grew up here. Her family lived right across the street from the development that the gentleman was speaking of. And my concern was also looking at a 2- or 3-story home in front of the house that she grew up in. He talked about the history and the best thing for the community. He's looking out for the community, but he never talked to the community. One other thing that I have a problem with, he talks about history. Well, the history is my wife's family came into Winter Park in 1952. They came to this community. They lived here. They raised their family, 7 children and generations of grandchildren. And they had one thing her father would always say. He wanted to leave that house to his children. He did that. And now that house is being encroached on by this developer and his friends. We don't have much as a people to hold on to. You know, there was a whole old adage, you know, we're going to give you 30 acres and a mule. Well, we have a little parcel of land. It looks like they want to take that too. And we're kind of fed up with it. We haven't been consulted about it. He says, I noticed in the notes also that he talked about building near the garage. A parking garage, building a single-family home next to a garage is not practical. Well, building a multi-level garage near single-family homes is not practical either. But that's what they did. I also heard there was going to be no change in land use at this time. We're looking for R1, R2, but I'm hearing R4 being thrown out there. So when does it end? When does it end? The gentleman that spoke first, when he said that it's just the beginning, and I believe it's just the beginning too, because Little East spoils the whole unleavened bread, and that's what's happening. I think it's going to encroach on the south side of Canton. I think it's going to go on the east side of Capeland. I think it's going to continue to encroach and encroach and encroach. And a little bit of my background, I've been in architectural engineering for about 27 years. I've seen development. I've drawn drawings. And just like the gentleman before me said, at least they could have given you some preliminary idea of what they were anticipating. Well, the reason they didn't do that, I believe, is because they don't want us to see it right now. And one other thing, a development of this nature takes a long time to come to fruition. The gentleman stated that when he got up here. He's taken a long time to make this happen. And I believe that because it takes a long time to put your ducks in a row, get this piece, get that piece, and orchestrate your plan to take over a neighborhood and take over a portion of a city. And that's what he seems to be doing. Again, that's my opinion. We are property owners, like I said, we own 810 Canton. Our idea is to restore that property to the standards of Winter Park and make it a viable place. We wanted our daughters to live here in Winter Park. That's what we were doing for that property. But see, I'll wrap it up. But in a nutshell, I would say to you as well, vote no against this encroachment and rezoning of this the request that they have. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Marquita Hollingsworth. I live on 646 West Comstock Avenue. And my parents live on English Court, which is the next street over from this project will be. And they moved here in '89, so I've been a resident of Winter Park for 25 years. The house that they're in, my great-great-grandmother was in it, my grandfather grew up in it, my great-grandmother grew up in it. When we moved here in '89, my great-great-grandmother and great-grandmother were still living there. And they added an addition, we built onto the home. And I too would like to one day own that home. I left for college and moved back here to Winter Park because I like the character of it. It's walkable, it's not overcrowded or anything. And I just think my main concern is just the scale of this project. That current project that is currently being constructed on off the Dennings, across from English Court and across from the village is just massive. It looks like a dinosaur standing from my parents' house. And what it is, it's basically wrapping around and community of being in this shadow. So my main concern is just the scale of it. And like I said, when I left for college, so I have my bachelor's and my master's degree in architecture. So just the scale of it, that's my main concern is basically the scale of it. I would too like to eventually have that house one day. And it's just encroaching upon that community and that neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
Yes, my name is Jeff Hamilton. I live at 2059 Woodlawn Drive in Orlando, but I own the property at 438 North Capen, which is probably one of the most strongly impacted by Mr. Bella's project. And I would like to say that I think R3 there is completely appropriate. I think that block is in transition, and I think the fact that it's been cookie cuttered up with missing teeth is really not good development. I think it should be consistent. I think the David Weekly product is a very good product, and I think people are doing themselves a disservice when they talk about what's really happening in this neighborhood. All of those lots are vacant, with the exception of one. And what happens is when you reduce the density in Winter Park, you increase the price of the product. It happens every single time. So by increasing the density here, I think you make it more affordable to a lot of people. I also think Mr. Bellows, you should resist the temptation to redesign his project. He has a history in Winter Park of building much better projects than he has to do. He has a really good eye architecturally, and I think he's really an asset to the community. So I think I would take what he says very seriously. I think he's really a strong asset to the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mary Daniels. I live at 650 Canton Avenue. And without being redundant and going over and over, I'm in opposition to all three of the requests. The request changed the conflict with the intent and the investment of Hanover Square Land Trust, which is dedicated to preserving quality and affordability of housing within the Winter Park community redevelopment. The elimination of single-family opportunities within the neighborhood will increase demands on the land trust while prematurely increasing land costs. Not only that, I also oppose the compromise that's offered by the city. If we continue to piecemeal, and just as the gentleman said, we're looking at the parking garage that's there. The parking garage was built. There were single-family homes there when that parking garage was built. And it seems to be a problem with property on the west side that's 200 feet. There were single-family homes on each one of those parcels of land when that parking garage was built. So now that the parking garage is there, single-family home isn't appropriate to be beside a parking garage. Single-family homes were there first. They were on 200-foot lots. You have properties in the other areas of Winter Park where the property size are large. But in this community, if it's 200 feet, well, that's too large for a single-family home. Let's make it more density. I think you've set a precedent. I've said this more and more times in the past. You approved the house on the other end of Canton. Combined 3-4 lots, a massive home there that's still for sale. Because the developer bought 8 parcels of land, he knew they were R1A when he bought it. But he bought it with the speculation and the vision to make a profit. That's a business person. Naturally, he's gonna try to make a profit on that. But hypothetically, if I go on Park Avenue, if I go on Palmer, I go anywhere else, and I so happen to have the money maybe to catch the lotto, that's the only way I could do it, and piecemeal and buy property, and I come to you guys, I want to combine this property. I want to build townhomes on Palmer, where you have nice single-family homes. On the other end of Park Avenue, where you have nice single-family homes. Where you set a precedent, why can't I do it? And that's what they're basically saying. Because, if you don't mind giving me a couple more minutes, because of what has happened on Swope and Dennis, and what's happening across the street where the driver's license office is, then it's okay and appropriate to move on campus and to scale down R4, R3. Well, you know what? I live in the next block. So what block is going to be next? What street is going to be next? And if you set a precedent and continue, then there will not be anything left of that community. And I think the community deserves better, and I think you, representing the city of Winter Park, deserve to do better. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Pandora Carter Taylor. I live at the residence that they didn't want to put that big high-rise on the side of my property. I have 851, 841, and 839 West Canton. Now, he tried to get that property away from me 7 years ago. He took me to court, tied up for 7 years. But I got to the Supreme Court and I won. I won in Ninth Judicial Court and I won in Supreme Court. It sticks in the back of my mind that he said on me, and I quote, I will get your property one way or another. And every time I see a development on my side of the west side, and all these people, I was born and raised here. My father worked for the city of Winter Park, James Carden, for 51 years with no vacation till you made a take it. He told us to believe in the things that he taught us. And I'm in one of those family homes. And I'll be darned if I'm gonna give it up. I pay my tax like everybody else pay their tax. And they're on time. Well, I do not want to look out and see a big building on the side of me. He's the type of person that tells you what he wants. He don't ask. And he does not talk to you. He tells you. So what I'm telling you is that he never asked any residents what their concern was. He never did ask for a meeting with us. He didn't do any of those things. But he come down here to City Hall and say what he wants. Well, I am a citizen. I do vote. And I just want you to hear how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Lurleen Fletcher, and I live at 80 English Court, and that's in my backyard. And I'm really opposed of it. I sit in my backyard for a while, and I look at that parking lot. Now I sit in my backyard, and I look at that senior building that they built over there. And when they came through and built that senior building, they did not come to the community and let them know they was going down Swope with it. Swope was a resident neighborhood too, and it was supposed to have stayed. Years ago, we came in and with a petition to keep the residential community for us to live. So we've been pieced off, ate off, and everything else. And so now he's coming in, wants to let me sit in my backyard and look at a 2-3-story building. When they built that 2-story building across the street over there where I stay on English Court, didn't anyone send any notice out. I didn't know that it was going up there until I met the owners of the place, and they told me they was building a 2-story building there. Okay, it looks very out of place, sitting off up in there with the single-family houses that's there. You open up a can of worms, and you're gonna get a can of worms. And when you open up Pandora box, that's what you're gonna get, because that's all what's walking around here in Winter Park now. So what I am saying, for a resident that pays tax, I would hope you don't approve of this. And when he was talking about the churches, those churches are grandfathered in. Those churches was there when I came in here in 1949. Them churches was sitting on them corners, and didn't nobody say anything about those churches then. Maybe some of them need to go in. Maybe the Lord will get into them. You need it. They need it in their heart and their mind. And I'm serious, because see, like I used to tell the pastors, you don't know what God got me for. And I be here in City Hall all the time, listening at this. When you come up and take a little piece of the west side, you don't take a little piece of the north, east, and south side and build no condos or build single-family senior citizen houses, 4-story buildings. We need single-family houses. I sit here and I listen at Bellows talk all the time. And I need to ask one question before I sit down, because I have 1,000 more I need to do, but I'm gonna write them down and do it at City Commission meeting. I wanna know, what is that little piece of zoning that he, let me see if you can see this. Yeah. This little piece off up in here, I want to know what was it rezoned from? Because when it was rezoned, I thought it was rezoned for something else. So I needed to know what is that rezoned. That's on Canton. That's that little piece of property on Canton. I think this is the part right here where the green space is, and I think it's right up in there. It was rezoned from, I think they said it was rezoned from R2. What is it now? It's R4. What's in that?
It's
That's
R4,
part.
but it's restricted
Yeah.
as green space.
Okay, because
40 years old.
when he rezoned it, it was supposed to been for stormwater. That's what it was supposed to when he rezoned it. I said, I hope you don't approve of it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kent Kirsten. I live at 654 West Canton Avenue, and that's part of the Hannibal Square Land Trust. I don't have a whole lot of new ideas to share, but I figured that I am representing a relatively new resident to the neighborhood. I've lived at my house since 2009. And I guess my ultimate issue is I came here because I talked to my neighbor Mary Daniels, who knew the people who live on these parcels, and they were opposed to the rezoning. And as a neighbor, I just feel like I should help and support my neighbors who have lived here for a very long time and have a lot invested. And I understand that there's a lot on the line for everybody involved, right? There's a lot of money that's gone into buying this and planning. But ultimately, what we as a community are forced with is a pretty ugly decision to some degree between supporting development and money and, you know, helping the neighborhood. And what I'm trying to say is that we're pitted up between people who have invested time and who have invested like family legacies versus those who have invested resources that are financial in nature. And ultimately, what this rezoning question is forcing us to ask is, are we more concerned about developers? Are we more concerned about potential customers? Or are we more concerned about the people who live in these places and have lived here for generations? So ultimately, I just want to come out and support my neighbors in hopes that if the parcels to the left and right of me were trying to be turned into townhomes and apartments, that they would stand up for me as well. So, thank you.
Don Fly, 327 Beloit. It's my hope that the golden rule has not been abandoned in Winter Park. I don't think there's any of us here that live in a single-family home that would like a R4, R3, or even possibly an R2 built abutting it. And I think we have to take that into consideration, and I hope you will.
My name is Mary Randall, and I live at 1000 South Kentucky Avenue in Winter Park. I've been a resident for, well, since 1987. I feel like when I listen to the Bellows proposals, I felt like I was listening to the massacre of the west side of Winter Park. And maybe I should say the ongoing massacre, because it started a long time ago. But I ask what a lot of other people have asked tonight: when will it end? When will we stop taking away our single-family neighborhoods? Some of the things that Dan Bellows made reference to were things like the fact that on a street we should have multifamily housing because we have commercial housing, because we have commercial businesses, and we have churches. Well, I grew up in an old-fashioned neighborhood, and that old-fashioned neighborhood had commercial businesses. It had mom and pop shops. It had all kinds of little businesses, and it had churches. I lived on a block that had a Lithuanian church on one side of me and a Greek church on the other, and we also had the largest population of black people in the state of Connecticut. That's how I grew up, and I grew up in a very diverse area. I think there is so much at stake here, and I feel so emotionally charged about this. I don't want to see our city continue to make these mistakes. We are a small town. We don't need to do what big cities do. I came to this town because I did my homework before I came. I researched your schools, I researched the housing, I researched the size of the town, and you had a downtown, and I loved that you had a downtown that I could go to, not something like Altamont Springs, where you just drive along 436 and somewhere along there is their town hall, city hall. I value this town so highly, and I'm not a wealthy person, but you're turning this into something that no one ever envisioned it to be. Please don't let this continue to happen to our precious city. It is a beautiful jewel. And I know there are people who don't like hearing the word gem and jewel tossed around anymore because it's been used so much to describe. But U.S. Airways, a monthly magazine, just did an article on what a precious jewel this city is. They don't even do articles on cities and towns, but they looked into Winter Park and saw what an outstanding community it was. And we don't want to be more than 28,000 people. We don't need more density. We need to go back to our roots and our single-family homes, and we need to protect the west side of Winter Park. Thank you. I'm voting for you to vote against it, please. Please.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is John Bolden. My address is 1469 Whitney House, and I live in Windermere. You might say, well, what are you doing here in Winter Park? I'm here in Winter Park because on 541 North Capon, I wasn't just lived there, I was born in that house. My mom and dad are still living. God has blessed them to still be here today. And my parents have stressed to us, John, do not ever sell that house. As long as I'm here, I want you to continue to do it. So we've invested money to try to preserve it, not so much to preserve the house, but to preserve the image for which Winter Park stands for. I was born in Winter Park, graduated from Winter Park High School, went to Florida, and spent 37 years in the automobile industry. I mentioned where I live because I have two sons. My one son lives here in Winter Park, and he loved the community. There's really, think about it, when you really think about it, it's tough for an educated person to come back into Winter Park and want to live live on the west side, because now everything is mass and apartments. You're driving out a future generation of people away from here if you consider letting this go on. You make the comment that it's almost like a hodgepodge when you look down Capon Avenue from Morris Boulevard to Webster. There's a hodgepodge. You got commercial, you got churches, you got homes. The residents didn't approve those plans. You guys did. This is not emotional. It's about economics. It's not about economics, it's about the economics of the people that live in Winter Park. Please vote against this. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Brady Burton. I am Hannibal Square Community Land Trust homeowner on 652 West Canton Avenue, and I oppose. Like you mentioned, it's already busy, but to add that would be even busier. And I have 3 children, 3 small children, and it would just be too much. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Faye Washington, and I reside at 321 North Capon, and I have a own property at 285 and 331 North Capon. And I too oppose this project. I think that you should continue to designate those properties to continue to be R1A. In contrast, that it doesn't work financially for investors. It's just another high-impact growth project in an area of single-family homes. And I would hope that you would vote against this project. Thank you.
My name is Vicki Kruger, and I live at 200 Carolina Avenue. And I hadn't thought I was going to speak, so this might be a little bit skewed. My first thought when I read the policy 1384, I thought it should be renamed the Let's Build Garages in Commercial Buildings policy, because this is what I envisioned happening if this goes through, as people build them in order to then be abutters so that they can raise the density. And I want to bring something else in, which sounds like it's coming from left field, but I don't think it is. Back in December 2012, Forbes magazine, which is not considered anything but a business-oriented magazine, listed the 25 states in America to do business in. You might be surprised to find out that Florida didn't make it, and even more surprised to find out that Massachusetts did. Now, I spent 32 years living outside of Boston, so I know the state. Now, why did this happen? The Massachusetts ranking came in at 49th in business costs, which is awful, and it came in 42nd in regulatory environment, which is also pretty bad out of 50. But it came in at #1 in quality of life, and that's what we're talking about here. This is a quality of life issue. We are all stakeholders in this, and I'd like to just say the study ranked across the board, and quality of life included the neighborhoods that are lived in. The gentleman who spoke earliest talked about all sharing and getting together. I don't believe that development is a four-letter word, but I don't think the stakeholders here, in this case, the neighborhood, and I do live in the West Side, are brought in as well as the developer, the city, and so forth. And I really think that if that were the case, we could see the city of Winter Park grow appropriately. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public who would like to speak? If not, I will applicant or outstanding comments. There's a lady over there.
I reside at 794 Cornstalk Avenue. I was sitting back there looking at the city's inland. We were established in 1882, but before 1882, the Indians resided here. If we know our history, we had the Indian Removal Act. So now, what removal act are we having here in the city of Winter Park? The only thing they have named up the Indians today is Osceola. That's the only thing that reminds us of the Indians. But oh, the city was gracious. They gave us a heritage center to where we have pictures and things of what the community West Winter Park used to look like. And one of the questions that I had was for Jory. One of the prerequisites was that this go before the CRA board, advisory board, before it came here. And I didn't hear in your presentation the recommendation from the CRA advisory board.
The policy required it if it were located as new residential and this is single family.
I beg to differ, but we always have to beg to differ because no one thinks that the residents read up and know anything that's going on in the community. The staff recommended that this property facing Canton Avenue be allowed to have a zoning change because of the garage. We didn't want that garage in the beginning. We told them that we didn't want it. What was the hidden agenda? Oh, we don't have a hidden agenda. Well, They were supposed to build what is there now, a building. But the city had forced them to build that building because they were going to use that parking garage for the Winter Park Village parking. The city had to force them to put the building there. We have properties on Simon and Pennsylvania Avenue that they were supposed to build out. This was one of their earlier projects. To date, it hasn't been built out. They don't keep their word. They have plans, conceptual drawings that they have submitted to you, but what will actually go there? Now, my question to this board is, do you want 20 to 32 townhouses on Laurel Road? Do you want 20 to 32 houses on Carol Lee Lane or Wing Lane? Do you want 20 to 32 townhouses on Villa Solera or Villa Lombardi Road? I ask that you say no to this. When is it going to stop? I'm asking you to send a strong message to the city commissioner. Say, we're drawing the line in the sand. It will stop. We all live in Winter Park. Some of us have a little bit more than the next, but it's not a matter of the have or the have-not. I ask, which side are you going to be on? Law-abiding, tax-paying citizen, or are you going to stand for American greed?
Good evening. My name is Stephen Smiles. I reside in Waterford Lakes, but I own a property on 630 Depew. And I want to thank you for the time to come up and speak. I want to speak in opposition of high-density residential housing in a traditional single-family home area. Forgive my nervousness. I live in Waterford Lakes, and I see what high-density residential housing does to a community. And I dream of living on Depew Street. It's a wonderful, quiet, lovely street, and I really hope that it doesn't change because of impacts such as this. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the public would like to address this? If not, I'll let the applicant come back up for a few minutes to address any issues.